Hello everyone and welcome to GCP Part 5 video on Intellipaat. Now before we discuss our today's agenda, do not forget to hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon. So first we will discuss about VPC key concept. Moving ahead, we will discuss a GCP project. Then we will learn about network service tier. And at the end, we will discuss about shared VPC.
The various VPC concepts. What we'll do is, let's go back to our console. So one thing which you need to remember is whenever you create, we just created VMs only. We did not provision any network or anything. We did not configure any firewall rule. Everything was without configure anything. We were able to communicate easily. So how it was possible is whenever you create a new project in Google Cloud Platform, you would have seen that it takes good amount of time, at least 1 to 2 minutes. In that duration, what it does is it does various stuffs. One of the important stuff it does is it creates a network, default network or default VPC. It is available under network. To access that, click on the hamburger menu, scroll down to VPC network. So if you just click on this, you will see one network created, one VPC created with the name default, and that is the VPC name, and it will have 18 sub network, one for each region. As of today, there are 18 regions in GCP. So you see 18 subnets, each has its own address space, 10 dot address space. So tomorrow, if 19th region comes in, it is automatically added to this default VPC. Because of this, we were able to communicate without doing any extra work. So this is the benefit which you get when you provision a project in Google Cloud Platform, and you can see the firewall rules. It's not just the network, you need to also have the firewall rule. The firewall rule which helped us to SSH and do a ping was these two commands: allow default ICMP, this is for your ping to work, and the port 22, which is your SSH port. Because these two firewall rules were enabled, so it's because of these two things along with routes. So a network is created by default for across for all the regions, one subnet for all one region. So that's how it works. And there's a firewall rule, there's a route. Because of these things, we were able to easily just provision of two VMs in two different regions in the same VPC, and things started working. One of Google's recommendation is whenever you are provisioning any resource in production, don't use default VPC, because you may have a different business requirement. You may have a business which spans across only Asia only. Maybe it may have an office in Singapore, one office in Taiwan, one in Mumbai. That's it. You may not need to have networks in all other places. This could be a risk for your business. So what they recommend is the moment you are in a production project, delete this default VPC first and create your own VPC, create your own firewall rules, and based on that, based on the VPC, the routes gets created automatically. So that is Google's recommendation. So nothing from the exam perspective, but when you become an architect and you want to implement certain stuff, one of the best practices, delete the default VPC and create your own VPC based on your requirement. So that's what we'll try to do. Now we will do the same example of pinging two machines in the same network, but we'll try to learn the harder way. We just created VMs and things started working. But today we'll try to learn the harder way, meaning we'll try to create our own VPC, and we'll try to add a subnet, maybe a couple of subnets, one in Singapore, one in maybe in maybe we'll try to add three subnets, one in US, one in London, one in Singapore, and see how things will work. We'll try to learn the harder way. So by doing that, we'll also learn the concepts of VPC. So let's click create VPC network to give the CIDR range so that you know what should be the IP address range when you are giving the subnets. So usually 10 dot address space 172, 192. These are the address space you should use when you are using internal IP address or RFC 1918 standard. So let's give a name. Let's give it as learning VPC. Learning. I'll start with learning VPC. Going forward, we'll change it as we go through it. So this is the name. No straight. It's a straightforward thing. And when you want to create subnets, there are two different modes of creating your subnet. One is automatic mode or auto. The other one is custom. So let's click on automatic first to understand what is its features all about. So when you click on automatic, you get subnets for all the regions. Now you have 18 regions. If you see, you have a pagination. So all the regions, the 18 regions are made available here. And each region has its own subnet range or CIDR range. So that's thing, it's automatically created. You don't need to do anything extra. Plus, what you have is you will have 6 firewall rules, out of which 2, hope this is good enough for you people to see. And you have 6 firewall rules by default when you are configuring it in a default auto mode. So the first rule is, let's start with this one. It gives you a name, allow all egress. What is egress and ingress? So whenever you have a virtual machine, any traffic which is incoming inbound to your VM is called ingress. Any traffic which is going out of your virtual machine is called egress, outgoing traffic. So by default, any incoming traffic is denied. So this is what I mean by trust nothing by default. And it has a priority which is 65535, which is the lowest priority. As if you want to override this firewall rule, you need to have a priority which is lesser than this. It is one number less than this. So this gets overridden later, like where you can SSH, ping, all those stuff. So that comes into picture. So if you want to override, you can have a higher priority. Higher the priority, lesser is this number. That is how firewall rule works. And the second default firewall rule is allow all egress. Anything which is going out of your VM, you allow all them. So that is, these two firewall rules don't have a checkbox, meaning you cannot delete these two things. If you want to override, create a firewall rule, have a priority which is lesser than that. If it is less, means the number being less, the priority being high. So that's how it works. So apply a firewall rule. Usually when you create a firewall rule, the priority would be by default 1000, meaning it will override what you have in your default firewall settings. This will be overridden. So these are the 6 firewall rules which comes inbuilt, and if you want, you can select few stuffs, or you need to do it. This two things gets automatically added, and you have the option of having this routing. We'll come to this later when we go into much deeper stuffs, where you will use something called as cloud router, which will advertise what is the subnet in that region, or it has to be global. So you have two options. Let's go with the default one, which is regional. That should be good enough. So with this, if you just click, you will be able to create a auto mode VPC. As a best practice, click on this command line where you can see the various commands which it shows. Let me just zoom this for you. So it is again gcloud compute. It's not instances here, but it is networks create, where it creates a VPC and the subnet mode is auto. You may get a question on such things. The auto hyphen subnet hyphen mode is auto, or there's one more mode called as custom. We'll show you that in a minute or so. So that is one thing. You created a VPC, then there are firewall rules which you need to apply. So there are 4 firewall rules. The 2 is always hidden. You don't need to explicitly mention it. So these are the 4 firewall rules which you can override for the default one. So this is what you get. So all good. You can create it, but there's no fun creating a auto mode because we already have a default VPC which is exact replica of what we are trying to do now. So there's no fun there, but let's explore custom VPC, which is really fun because this is what in this custom VPC you will create each and every subnet based on your requirement. And a point to notice, whenever you're creating in auto mode, all the CIDR range would be in 10 dot address space. The reason is in 10 dot address space, you can have up to 16 million IP address. So that's the reason Google has chosen this CIDR range. In custom VPC, what we'll try to do, we'll try to explore all the three variations, the 10 dot space, 172 space, and 192 space. Everything we'll try to do. So it's like learning all the stuffs in one shot. So what we'll do is, let's give a name, just edit it as learning custom VPC. That's what we're going to do. We're not going to do automatic. There's no much fun there. So let's give a name. So let's create something in US. US should be fine. First, let's start with US, slowly move to London and Singapore. So let's give a name like subnet-US. Region is US Central. Let's give that. Let's give a CIDR range like 10.21. Make sure if you try to do something wrong, it will tell you it is not in the standard RFC 1918 standard. It's very intuitive. The UI is very, very intuitive there. So make sure you have it. So what it means is like 24 bits are blocked by the network. Only the last 8-bit is changing. So your address range will be starting with 10.21.0, will be ending with 10.21.0. So this last 8-bit can change. That's what we are saying. So that is one thing. The next important thing is there are two important flags. Let's explore what it is. So there's something called as private Google access. I got a question on this, so it's worth spending good amount of time because sometimes you would not have, because this is a small checkbox, you may ignore it, but it's worth spending good amount of time understanding what it means. We will do a detailed demo later, maybe next week on the same topic. So this is called as private Google access. So what it means, when it comes to this kind of features, Google is very intuitive, the UI is very intuitive. It gives you a help, a very short help, which helps you to understand what is this feature all about. So set whether VMs in this subnet can access Google services without assigning external IP address. Meaning, if you make it on, you can access all the Google services, the APIs, the compute API, storage API, all the stuff which you access, maybe Google Map, all those APIs, you can access it using internal IP address. So what is the advantage? The egress cost is less, more secure. You don't need to expose it via a external IP address. This is turned off by default, but the question I got is like you should enable this and do something, access certain services. This is important. If you want to access APIs, Google APIs, be it compute engine, storage, Google Maps, or any other APIs of Google, you can enable this on so that the VMs in this subnet can access those APIs using internal IP address. So that's one thing. The other option which you get is flow logs. This will help you to see how the flow is happening, the traffic flow. You can get information logged in, whether the firewall rule is blocked or whether there's any issue with the subnet. You can get all those things. Logging is enabled. If you want, you can turn it on. So this will help you get all the log information with respect to your networking. This would be a handy option when you are debugging certain stuff. So click done. We have added our first subnet, which is in US. Similarly, we'll add two more subnets, one in London. We'll add it. That's what we'll try to add. So, and purposely what we'll do is, okay, you'll get used to this. What is Europe West 2? If you don't remember what is this, you'll get used to it since I'm doing demos extensively. I remember it. If you don't know, okay, what is this maps to Europe West 1, what this maps to which region? One simple handy option is go to your compute engine. So if you create a VM, you should see that screen, right? The regions, all those stuffs. that is a place where you can quickly know. The reason is the user interface is good there. You see Europe West 2 London. So, or you can definitely look into the documentation, but if you don't want to go to documentation, want to just get the information from the console, this could be a place. West 1 is Belgium. So I'm going to use West 2, which is London, and I'm going to purposely give not 10 dot address space, but I'm going to give 192 address space. So looks good. And if you want to turn it on, it's your choice. Or if you want to turn it off, you leave it as is. Done. So I just wanted to show you that example. That's the reason I turned it on. So by default, I'm turning it off. So, but private Google access makes a huge difference when you are working with only internal IP address. And I had got a question on that. So there's a chance, if you are lucky, you may get a question very similar to that. So the next subnet is in Singapore. So this way you know where your organizations is having a data center, or where you want to open up a specific subnet. You can open it specifically, and you will have the like privilege of what should be your CIDR range. So because it's not always you will do everything in cloud itself. May need to interact with your on-premise data center also. At that time, if you are using default VPC, where all the address, the CIDR range is 10 dot address space, you may have a conflict. So, but if you're creating your own custom VPC, you know, because you cannot change what is there in your on-premise, because it's a huge setup. You cannot change, okay, this is IP conflict, let me change the IP of my machine. That could be a tedious task. Change the IP address, the range in your cloud, because it's very flexible. It gives you a choice, but on premise it could be an tedious task. So that's the reason why one should prefer custom VPC when you are in production, when you are deploying a production application. So Singapore is Asia Southeast 1, and now we had 10 dot space we had used, 192 space we had used. Now we'll use 172 address space. So I just wanted to show you that how these different address space can still communicate each other. That's the gist. Click done. So we have created to this thing. Let me just edit it, give a proper name like US. There are various regions in US. Let me make it as US Central so that it's very clear. All good. We gave a name. We created a subnet, 3 subnets. Let's leave it as default for now. And you can click create, but I don't want to click create. I'm going to click on command line, where you will see one command for your custom. You see that previously it was auto, now it is custom. And we have 3 gcloud commands for creating the subnet. So I'm not going to run it from the command this thing. I'm not going to click create. I'm going to run it from the command line. There's a reason for that. Let me click on this. If you click on this, it will launch your cloud shell environment. If you have not, it will launch automatically, and all those 4 commands will be sent to the terminal automatically. So it is sent, and if you see, all those 4 commands are appended by using this AND operation everywhere, so it becomes like one single command. So let's hit enter. The reason why I'm trying to do it in the command line, there's a reason. Command line options is more verbose in nature. It gives you more information, lots of information, what's happening behind the scene. This could be helpful. That's the main reason. Instance in this network will not be reachable until firewall rules are created. As an example, to allow internal traffic between the instance, you need to have these stuffs, and they are giving us an example also how to create a firewall rule. Let's assume we are adamant we don't want to take this recommendation. Let's ignore this recommendation, and we'll see the consequence of that in a minute or so. So, but this kind of information you will not get if you are just clicked create in that web console. So that is the main reason I wanted to show you this option. Let's for a minute assume we ignored it, or we did not see this message itself. Let's see that and see what could be the consequence of the thing. So the subnet is the VPC is created, the subnets are getting created, US Central is created, London is created. Let's just wait for the Singapore subnet to be created, and then we'll go back and create our those things, the VMs in those subnets. I'll show you how to create virtual machines in a specific to use a specific VPC. We'll show you that. So it's all clear. Let's clear the screen. We don't need our Cloud Shell environment. Just close it. So if you now click on this VPC network, you should see two VPCs. One is your default, which was automatically created during the project creation. The second one is the one which we created. The three subnets, all those things are there, all good. And you see this, it is custom. This one is auto. That's what you see. And one more observation is auto VPC, auto mode VPC can be converted to custom. That is possible. But if it is already a custom, you cannot change it to auto. That is the thing. So that is, it's only one way. You cannot change it. Auto mode, you can change it. So that is one thing. With that information, what we'll do is, so we have just created VPC and subnet. That's it. Let's go to our compute section and we'll create two or maybe three virtual machines. US 2 should be good. So one in US Central. Select US Central. Any region any zone should be fine. Select a micro VM. Now, but for now, what we'll do is we'll only change a small settings in this. So we'll just do one small setting, that is the networking stuff. If you scroll down, you'll see a link to change your network details. So click on that, click on this networking tab. By default, if you don't do anything, it chooses your default VPC. If you want to change it, click on this pen icon. You should see default. The reason is maybe I have selected, what was the region I had selected? Or maybe I should refresh it. Okay, let me refresh the screen. I did not refresh it, so it's not reflecting it actually. It was in a different tab. I just clicked it. The VPC which I created, it's not reflecting. So let me refresh it. So US server, central, any zone is fine. Make it micro, scroll down, click on the networking link. So click on that tab. You should see by default the default VPC is selected. Click on the pen icon. You should see your new VPC which we created, learning custom VPC. Select it and it will show you one subnet only. If you swap back to, because in we have added only three subnets and in US Central we have added only one subnet. There is a possibility of, if based on your requirement, in the same region you can have multiple subnets where you can add multiple subnets and see how it will impact your VPC workings. So we'll do that also. So for now there's only one subnet which is in 10 dot address space. Just select it and click OK. Click create. All good. That's it. So this way you can know you're not using now your default VPC, but you're using a different VPC, the one which you created. It's a custom VPC. Let's create one more video, maybe in London. So select US, Europe West 2. Any zone is fine. Similarly, click on the networking, edit it. You should see your learn custom this thing. And the thing is that based on what is your region you select, that specific subnet will appear. Just for example, let's assume you make a this thing like Mumbai, and if you recollect, we don't have any subnets created in Mumbai. And if you now scroll down, you see there's no subnets. So VPC is global and subnets are regional. So let's switch back to London. Scroll down, you should see the London subnet. All good. Click done, click on create. And if you want, you can create one more thing in Singapore. It should be the same stuff. I'm not going to do that. It's a very standard one. So what we'll do is SSH into both the machines and do a ping. So I'm going to do back-to-back screen so that you can see what's really happening. let's do the same stuff, ping. So we have done it in our own way. So we have not used the default VPC. We have tried to learn the harder way, how VPC is global, to learn to understand how VPC is global, all those stuff. So let's see what happens. You may see some messages soon, and let's see that. And this is how I personally learned VPC when I was like when I started my career in this thing. I did a mistake there, so I wanted to showcase that mistake. Let's just wait. You see it is taking longer time compared to the usual time it took to SSH. This could be something fishy. Let's see, is there any chance that this console will give us more information? Let's wait for a minute or so. Okay, you see something here, cannot connect, retrying second time. It is telling you need to check this serial port, and you can do that. You are trying to SSH, and you may recollect the recommendation which the command line gave. If you want to communicate, you need to have the firewall rule created. And now if you go back to your VPCs, click on the firewall rules, you may see there's no firewall rule created. Yes. To access, yes, to access port SSH, you need to have open port 22. We did not open, we ignored it. The recommendation which the command line gave, we ignored it, and that's the consequence which we are facing. We are not able to connect it. So let's create the firewall rule. So you don't see any firewall rule. All the firewall rules, it is only for your default VPC. Let's create our own firewall rule. Click on create firewall rule. Give a name. So let's give it as learning custom hyphen VPC hyphen FW firewall rule. There are lots of other stuffs here. You can open, turn on the logging, all the stuff. But let's try to use this fill in the details which is mandatory. Give a name to which network you want to apply this firewall rule. So firewall rules are attached to specific VPC network. So click on this learning custom VPC. That's where we wanted to apply. And you can quickly see the priority, 0 being the highest and 65535 65535 is the lowest firewall rule, firewall priority. By default, it shows you 1000. So when it comes to firewall rule, there are different types of traffic, whether it's incoming traffic or it's outgoing traffic, ingress or egress. So we want to connect to the VM, right? So it is incoming to the VM. So that's what we are trying to go. So we'll put it as incoming traffic to your VM. What is the action we want to allow? That is one thing. Now let's click on where to which target you want to apply. So what we have various options. I'll show you both the demos, all the demos. So first let's use the easiest option. Let's apply this firewall rule for all the instance in this network. So we have two instances running in this network. Let's apply it to all the network. Okay, apply to this. Now you can have a filter. Who can connect to this virtual machine or to these machines? You can put set of rules. What you can put is we can use IP ranges. Like you can specifically mention what is your IP address range you want to allow, or you can open it to everybody. So if you just give this, so it's open to everybody. Anybody can connect as long as they have the right public and the private key options. If they have that, they can connect to that. So let's start with this, slowly put more restrictions on it. So that is the range which we are given. And what are the IPs, or what are the this thing we want to give? We want to open port 22 so that we can SSH into that machine. So as a best practice, click on the command line to see what is the command actually getting converted to. It's gcloud compute firewall rules create. So that's the key stuff here. At least as you go through this, you'll get used to those gcloud commands. That's the reason whenever I'm having a new service enabled, I'm showing you the command line option. So gcloud compute firewall rule. So that's the thing. Click on create, and you should see a notification. It's once it gets, we should be all good to SSH. Okay, it's created. You see it is applied to which network? our custom VPC. And one more important, a small tip which I wanted to give is, if you have tens of more than like 20 virtual machines, you don't know to which network these virtual machines are connected. A good option is click on this column, and there are lots of other columns which is not shown. So just select this network. It will tell you to which network your virtual machine is connected to. This could be a very handy option. And if you want to get what is the settings for this network, just click on this three dots. You have an option of view network details. This will help you, okay, what are the firewall rules open, what is the routes, all those details. So quickly you will get, this is the NIC. So there's one NIC connected to one NIC, and the network name is this one, subnet is this one. Then you have the firewall rules, ingress analysis, which helps you, okay, only port 22 is open. Gives you a quick information. So that's an handy option. Now let's SSH. Hope this time it works. If it does not work, we'll see what is the fix. If it works, we will do the same process of pinging each other machine and see whether the ping works. Okay, looks like it is working. Clear the screen, get the IP address. Here, clear the screen in. So ping from US machine, try to ping the London machine. And similarly, ping the US machine from London machine. So before I do it, any guess whether the ping will work or not? If it works, what should be the, why is that working? If it's not working, why it's not working? Anybody wants to give a try? What could be the possible outcome based on what we had done so far? Let me hit enter, show you what's really happening. Dharmendra mentioning it will work. Mahesh also mentioning it will work. But the answer is, we were so adamant not to follow the firewall, the recommendation which it gave. So we opened up port 22, it thinks solved, but for ping to work, what is the protocol you need to open? It is ICMP. If you have added that, you will be able to do it. So let's leave the screen as is, go back to our console, edit this firewall rule which we created, and add one more firewall rule, put a semicolon, ICMP. Just save it, and you should see the moment it gets updated, you should see the ping working in a minute or so. You see it started working. It should be reflecting even here. You see, it's just taking time for everything to be propagating. Now it's working. So we learned the harder way. So the stuff which we saw yesterday, it's not a security breach, but it's a feature which Google provides. It's all because of default VPC, which creates a firewall rule, a route, everything for us to make our life easy. But today we learned the harder way, where we created our own VPC, created 3 subnets, created firewall rules, specific firewall rules we created, and we saw the ping is happening between 2 virtual machines which are in the same VPC network. So that's the stuff for you. Going through this journey, we learned what is firewall rule, what is custom VPC, how to create it, the commands for it. So all those things we learned. So that was our learning through this journey. So usually you cannot, if you want, you can at least see the firewall rule. There's no option of copying firewall rules from one network to another, but you can look at what is the configuration. So if you want, so you can look into that. So there's one question like, can we copy the firewall rule? Option of copying is not possible, but you can just click on this. At least you'll know, okay, what is the pattern it has been applied. Say for example, you see this is where every TCP port, every UDP port, and ping is enabled. So you can get a syntax. If you want to know the syntax, you can get it, and you can do the same stuff there. And one suggestion which I wanted to give is, whenever you're working with firewall rule, multiple firewall rules, sometimes you may get things not working. So if things are not working, you have a tendency of deleting it. You may feel like deleting it. Okay, this is blocking something, let me delete it. My suggestion is, don't delete it, edit it, and there's an option for you to disable it. So at least you will know what's really working, what was not working. So try to disable it, so it's always good. That way you can reuse the firewall rule later. Priority, it can be from 65535 to 0. 0 is the highest priority. It will override everything. So whenever there's a tie break, the priority comes into picture to do the tie break. It cannot be anything. The priority cannot be anything. It should be always between this. If you make it 2000, no worries, but it is still higher priority because the lowest one is 65535. So if you give 0, this priority cannot be overridden by anything else because that's the highest priority. So that's how firewall rules works. And if you click on routes, so in simple terms, like in very simple terms, if I want to explain route, so this is how your packets gets routed. In very simple terms, if I want to give an analogy, if you want to commute from your house to office, so usually you will take a specific road. So maybe a ring road, whatever it is, a road, you take that road and you reach your office. So the way you take it, that is called as route. And your car or your bike is a packet which is moving on the road or moving on the route. And once you reach the office, it's not that you, because there's a road, you can go till your office. There will be a security check at the entrance. That is your firewall rule. So your firewall rule plus your route makes the packet to be transferred from one machine to other. So both the things are very important. So just a small analogy so that it's easy for you to understand if you're not coming from a networking background. So both firewall rules and routes matters. And when it comes to route, you don't, and if you remember, we did not create any routes, but you can put a filter for a specific network. You should see the routes there. So the routes is automatically created by Google when you create a custom VPC or a auto VPC. In any type of VPC, the routes are created automatically. There are two routes which is created. One is per CIDR range, so that's what you see, and there's one more route which is created for internet gateway. This is your default internet gateway. This is for communicating with the external world. So if you want you can just disable this. That is possible. You can delete it so that avoid any access to the external world. But the routes which you create, this is for internal communication, those routes cannot be deleted. You see that? But if I select this internet gateway, you can delete it so that you can avoid the communication. But these routes, these are important. You cannot delete these local routes. We will create a route during the demo, the next following demos. But just for your information, these routes are automatically created by Google when you create a VPC, be it custom or auto. All right, let's go back to our concepts. Hope it was a good concept or learnings. Now let's review our concepts. So VPC network, including their associated routes and firewalls, are global resource. Firewall rules, routes, VPC, these are all global. Subnet, which we created 3 subnets, these are all regional resource. And there are 2 types of VPCs available. That's what we saw. One is auto, another one is custom. Google recommends you to create custom VPC in production. That's the stuff. And every time a project is created, there's a default VPC created, and default VPC is in auto mode. That is the one. And you'll have firewall rules which is controlled by the network. That is one thing. And you will have 2 routes for each network. One is a default internet gateway, another one is for internal routes to communicate with the internal machine. So this is the standard stuff which you will have when it comes to the VPC concepts. So let's move on to the next part, service tiers. So this is a nice diagram because when you are learning cloud, you'll always have this tendency like how really my packets are getting transferred when I do something from my laptop, how it's getting connected to cloud, all those things. You will have always have this. I felt this slide is a good slide actually. Let me just zoom this a bit if it is not good enough to see it. So when it comes to the network tiers, there are 2 types of network tiers offered by Google. The first one is called as standard. No big thing deal with this. So what happens is end user. So assume it's me here, end user. I'm connected to my ISV, internet service provider, and when I transfer any packet, goes via public internet. So this is called as a hot potato. It keeps on having lots of hops here over the public internet. Only when it reaches Google point of presence, then only it will reach the Google's optic fiber, the global network. Only then it will reach. So but to reach, it has to go through this entire process of various hops. So this would create a slowness, latency will be there, and so that's a drawback. So this is what most of the cloud vendors use, AWS, Azure, because they don't have their own global VPC. So that's the main reason. There are organizations who feels the moment point of presence. This is where Google has exposed its network to the external world. If you connect to POP, point of presence, the moment you can connect to Google's global network. From there, it is all internal communication. So this is where you can expose to. That is what is called as POP. In premium tier, the moment you leave your service provider, it is connected to Google's point of presence. So any port, yeah, there should be nothing to do with the port should be okay. You have various ports open there, and you can get those details, what ports to be communicated. So usually it is the packet level. It's nothing to do with the port level. It is at the packet level, I would say. So the 7 layers of OSI model. So when you look at it, so it comes at the lowest layer. So it is at layer 2. That's where POP works at. So layer 2, it's nothing. It will not do with anything with your ports, because ports and all is at network layer, layer 3. But this works at layer 2, where it is directly connected to your Ethernet switch, all those stuffs. So that's where it will come into. So with premium tier, you're directly getting connected to your Google point of presence. So these dots which I showed you, these are your edge point of presence, the POP. This is your POP. And if you're from India, you should see you have 3 POPs, one in Mumbai, one in Delhi, one in Chennai. So far we saw how things works as long as everything is in one single VPC. So now we'll try to expand our wings. We'll see how things happens if there are multiple VPCs. And we also saw maintaining a VPC, creating a firewall rule, all those things could be a nightmare for folks or for a team who's not good at networking stuff. So that's where Google offers you various other options where you don't need to worry about your networking stuff. Just work on your project, the specific application you are working, hand off all your networking stuffs to some other team. So this is what usually works in your organization, right? In your on-premise data centers, there's a dedicated team which is called as networking team. And if you're working on a specific project and you want to expose an IP address or open a port, you will raise a ticket and they will do that thing for you. You don't need to know what is the networking stuffs there. So it works like a black box. Similar stuff works with GCP also. It is called as shared VPC, where there's a dedicated project called as host project. Let me get my highlighter. Called as host project, where you have your routes, you have your VPC, you have your subnets, all those things you will have, everything you configure as what we have done now. And you can have service projects. That's what you can have. And these service project can directly connect to the network of its choice. So this project may be working for US West related project. So it will connect to that subnet. And this service project, which has some instances, it can connect to US East specific subnet, and they will do the same stuff. Like the only thing is that you're handing off all your networking related stuff to a different project. So this is called as host project. So as a service project, like maybe this is like an R&D team who is good at building some web application. They're good at building web application only. They're not a networking geek. So what they do is they try to tap onto the stuffs which the host project has already done. So all the networking stuffs, they rely on that, but they only do the development. So this is how you can share your VPC. The VPC gets shared. So the advantage here is host project acts as a central point of contact for controlling your firewall rules, routes, everything. So This service project has no control, meaning this project, when it is created, definitely there will be a default VPC, right? What they will be usually doing is they will purposely delete that default VPC, meaning these projects will not have any VPCs in their project. They will be always relying on these shared VPC. Everything is controlled by the host project. Sometimes this could be very advantageous because you don't need to worry about any networking stuff. It's been handed over to a specific team. Sometimes it could be somewhat difficult. If you want to quickly open up a firewall port, you need to raise a ticket, all those stuff. So it could be an advantage or it could be a disadvantage based on in which situation you are in. So this is shared VPC for you. Usually there could be questions on shared VPC. The questions typically would be like where there are different teams, they want to access their own and have their own projects but don't want to create VPCs or maintain VPCs, but they still want to communicate between two different projects using internal IP address. So that could be the type of question. So if you see here, service project B, service project A can communicate each other. These two instances can communicate each other provided the firewall rules are open. Because if you see, it is nothing but the exact stuff we have done so far. Only thing is that the VPC which we created will not be used in the same project, but it will be used by some other projects. It's like VPC as a service in very simple terms, I would say. So that's how shared VPC works. So typically in a very large organization where there's a dedicated team to take care of your networking, this kind of VPC will work. A word of caution here, shared VPC works only within a organization only. Why I'm saying is we will see a next feature which you will see which can be working across different organizations. So but shared VPC works only under a single organization. So click on the hamburger menu, scroll down to your VPC where you should see shared VPC. So if you click on this, you may get a message saying shared VPC is only available for projects within an organization. What it means, it is expecting an organization node, meaning if you click on this projects, you see this organization node. For us, it is no organization because we are using a free tier. We have not attached it to any organization, because of which you cannot create a shared VPC. So only if you have an organization node, then you can create shared VPC. So because of which we may not be able to do a demo using our free tier, but should be okay. The concept is very important. So how it will happen is you will create a shared VPC, and so once you are creating a shared VPC, you should be in a host project, have it, share it, and the process would look like you share a specific network, subnetworks, and those subnetworks can be accessed by services by VMs in different projects like service project 1, service project 2, so you can access it and they can start using the VPC to communicate each other. So that's how shared VPC works in an account where you have organization attached. So that's how it works.
Just a quick info, guys. If you want to make a career in cloud computing, then Intellipaat provides an advanced certification on cloud and DevOps by IIT Madras. This course is taught by industry experts and IIT Madras faculty. This course is designed to upskill and land your dream job. Now let's continue with the session.